Hello and welcome back. We're looking at another old aircraft. It's not a new one, although there's a new combination of things that I have with it, and that is the Flightfactor VMAX. I'm actually not sure what the exact company name for this is. The Flightfactor basically Boeing 777, the 777, and here in particular we're looking at the freighter variant of it, because I have the extended package. I have it several years now, so it's probably one of the oldest aircraft I have in on my hangar. Way back in Explain 10 times I bought it, and and I like flying freighters anyway, so I decided to go for this German company here, Aerologic livery, and I have modded the aircraft somewhat. There are a number of mods out there that do the virtual cockpit. There's actually two of them, if I remember correctly. One is called Pumpers, is from Pumper on the forum explain.org, and the other one is, I think, FS Cabral or something like that. The difference between the two is the Pumper one is older, and it actually modifies also object files and the aircraft definition files. And the problem with that is that it is made for a particular version, I think originally 1.7. Someone then, or maybe Pumper himself, brought it to Explain 11. So in theory it is possible to use the Pumper mod, and it looks quite okay too. But my problem with it is it's not compatible with updates. So I hate having to replace things and then not knowing whether or not that fits together, because it doesn't look like the Pumper mod is following the versions of the Flightfactor here. So I personally have chosen the smaller package, which is the one from FS Cabral, which is only the textures. There are only some texture modifications. They make the textures look a little bit different. The originals are okay, but they're not really great. Definitely not on the level that Flightfactor produces nowadays. So the mods, the visual mod, we're going to have a look at it in a moment, I think it's working quite well. The other thing I did is also freeware, is I got rid of the Windows reflections, because I don't think they work, at least not with this old version here, because that was made, this 777 wasn't made for Explain 11, it was made for Explain 10, and the reflections, they don't really work for me. I don't like reflections in the cockpit anyway in the simulator, because they're usually not that realistic, and more often than not they're actually disturbing, because they obstruct the view in many cases, at least for me. I don't really like the reflection stuff. So there's very little out there that where I accept it as, yeah, that's okay, that actually adds to the atmosphere. Usually it looks odd, and it makes things harder to read when it's on the instruments, for example. So there's a window reflection mod out there that you can choose. There are 4 textures, you have to place them in a folder, and your Windows reflections are gone. And the last thing, this is a payware add-on, is the BSS. I forgot now what the full company name is. I'm going to put the link in anyway of all of this here. And it's a sound mod, and it's quite a comprehensive sound mod. It replaces all the sounds. You can choose for which aircraft you will replace the sound folder. And here's the thing: you cannot replace the sound. Well, you do replace them for all variants of the 777 if you have the extended package, but you have to choose what aircraft you want the sounds for. So I obviously choose the freighter sound, because I'm most likely going to fly the freighter. Probably most of the time I'm going to fly the freighter, and I don't believe that the sounds wouldn't work for the other variants. So they sound the same. So I'm not sure what difference we have between the freighter sound kit and the other ones. Possibly maybe the loading, cargo loading or something. There may be some different noises in there, but yeah. I got this a couple of weeks or months ago. I think it was during the Christmas or pre-Christmas sales, or maybe the shortly after Christmas sales or whatever. Whenever we had some sale, there was a really good offer on the, was it the Org store, I think, and because it was pretty cheap, I actually tried it out. I got it, I installed it, and it seems to work quite well. So that's all the modifications to it. We're going to look at them, but before we do so, there's a reason why we're still in this picture, because I wanted to show you this box. This is version 1.9.14, and it is the only version that currently works. 1.9.15 I can't get, because we have now 1.9.16 out, and 1.9.16 crashes my simulator. I have seen this happening to other people as well, probably not everyone, and I guess it has something to do with the Microsoft runtimes, the Visual C runtimes, the Java version. Although I thought I am up to date and so on, it seems that something on my system does not work with the latest version of the Zazel engine. Zazel is one of these scripting languages, or the runtimes where all the logic for many of the, especially coming from Flight Sim 10, from X-Plane 10, you have the Zazel code there, and a lot of the logic and what's happening in an aircraft used to be programmed in Zazel. I'm not sure if Zazel is still as popular with new aircraft. It looks more like the XLUA. There's a new interface that comes with X-Plane 11. But yeah, so for example, the Zibo mod, I think, uses the XLUA, the inbuilt mechanisms, whereas this, I think, still relies on the Zazel engine. And there seemed to be an error. There's an error, it crashes, the Zazel engine crashes, and takes the whole simulator with it. So I stepped back to version 1.9.14 until I find out why Zazel crashes with a 16 update. So that's it. Let's have a quick look around it. So yeah, the outside modeling is okay. Don't forget, this is an old aircraft, and rumors have it that Flightfactor is working on a V2, which wouldn't surprise me, because that's the only way of getting another stream of income, because these guys need to obviously keep selling, and the 777 has kind of seen his days. It is still quite a good aircraft. So compared to other add-ons that you get for money here for X-Plane, this still runs in the medium sort of in the medium range, I would say. It's still able to yeah, it's not a bad add-on. It was probably one of the most complex at its time when it came out, and it still is a reasonable implementation of a Boeing 777. It has its little idiosyncrasies, and yeah, there are also simplifications. It's definitely not on the level of a Flightfactor A320. It's also called, I'm not even sure what they call it, if this is a professional or whatever. I don't think they made this distinguishing of what was it, advanced, professional, and ultimate. So for example, the Flightfactor A320 is an ultimate, therefore it costs yeah, near 100 euro or dollars. The A350, for example, is an advanced, and although it sounds advanced, it's actually the least advanced compared. Yeah, so this is pre all this advanced ultra and professional, but I'm guessing that the V2, like for the 757, we're going to see a new aircraft and pretty much new things on every level, and I'm expecting them to also update a little bit on the flight management, although it's not bad in the 777, but I'm pretty sure we're going to see some improvements. And especially I hope if they also make the freighter version, that they are giving us back doors. I mean doors where human beings can walk in, because for the life of me I don't really understand why they left out the front left and right doors. They can't be opened. It's obviously not foreseen, although if you open up the menu, that by the way you'll find the little icon for, if you open up the menu, you see these two icons, and in the passenger versions you can click on them and they open. Here they have just given you the promise of doors, but unfortunately the promise isn't kept. It's not opening. The only door that opens is the cargo door, and quite fast at that, and you can kind of climb up a ladder or something and then make your way to the cockpit. And after so many years, you would have thought that maybe they just add the sliders for these doors so that you can open them as well. It can't be that difficult because they do it for the other variants, but they never did. Well, what should I say? Interestingly, you can put your doors to manual, but it doesn't help either. Yeah, as you can see, the click spots, they're not there, so you can't open it. So that brings me to the menu for it. Here, this is also not on the level that we have nowadays. Nowadays, you have this iPad in the 757 and 767, and you do everything in there, the settings. This is the pre-iPad period here. So, and to be honest, what the hell is Supremri? I don't know. But you can set your cargo weight. So, for example, we could put in at least, let's say, 5 tons, or let's put in 15 tons of cargo. Actually, you should try and not fly this aircraft too light, because this has a bit of a rocket here. Yeah, if you're too light, you're going to see enormous climb and other things, because it has quite powerful engines. I'm not 100% sure that the engines and the thrust rating and how the aircraft reacts on it are 100% realistic, but I know that the real 777 can be quite a performance. Can be pretty hefty when it comes to performance, because they have a lot of power, and therefore if you're too light, and we might still see this, you really shoot up like a rocket. So you need to keep this under control, actually. So APU time, let's say 10 minutes. Not more than 10 minutes. Taxi time, we have about 10 minutes taxi time. And then the takeoff fuel. The Try&Fly scenario, you would probably be fine. We would probably be fine with about 4 tons of fuel. That should be probably sufficient, and then we would add the reserves and all that. But I'm going to put in 10 tons because the APU takes quite a bit, and if you're too small, and 10 tons is not a lot for the 777. Okay, it wouldn't get very far with it, but we're not going to fly far. Or maybe just to get some weight on, let's put in 20 tons, although we are not going to need 20 tons. So that gives us a weight of 181 tons, which is also, it's not heavy. Yeah, it's not that heavy. But this is going to be a test flight. What we also can do is we can activate a GPU. As I say, here's the promise of stairs, but they're not there. We can add a fuel truck. You need to actually, if you want to load the fuel, and I'm going to apply the chocks, which are so minute that you wouldn't see them. You have to really look close to see that there are some mini chocks. There they are. Okay, and we don't need a passenger bus because the cargo pilots walk to the aircraft themselves. I'm making jokes. Guys, custom failures. I'm going to turn these off. I mean, they have also real time. So, for example, how long does it take to align the IRSs and so on, and the real limits. I'm going to turn all of that off because we're testing the aircraft. And when I make videos, I just hate when by accident or by some pure oversight the thing crashes. What's the point, you know? And then I have to start to repeat the video. So that's why I'm turning things like that off when I do a video like this. This is important if you have hardware, and I do have hardware. I got some second-hand GoFlight stuff. So, for example, I have the radios, and I have an old MCP. It's not the long one, the Boeing one. It's the really old one, which has knobs for everything. So it's fine. It's doing its job, and I run a special GoFlight interface tool here, and I've created a simple profile for the 777. And you need to turn the plug-in radio on if you want to use something like that, because otherwise the 777 will override anything that you do on the radios, so you wouldn't be able to switch your radios from the outside. Right, so that's that. You can actually create your own pushback. And there is a start tutorial. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to use an X checklist that I have. And if we press load fuel now, you can see, because we have the fuel truck, that's important. You need to have the fuel truck on the aircraft. Otherwise, this won't work. And I'm just wondering why all my views don't work. Don't tell me I have lost all my views again, or at least some of them. It sure looks like it. Yeah. Yeah, how come? Anyway, here's the fuel truck. That's not good. Here's, by the way, you can switch between these two pages, load the configuration. So all the settings you can also save, and as we can see, we have that there. If I do load settings, it actually changes a little bit, because when I saved it, I actually had the GPU 2 on. So you can load a setup. Now, our takeoff fuel is now down because I had 8,000 the last time I saved it, and that's why you should be careful when you save the settings. You should probably do your fuel after, and your cargo after you loaded the settings. So what did we say, 20 tons? Cargo weight. What did we have? That doesn't matter. Let's take 20 tons. And we said we're going to take, was it 15 tons of fuel? Right, about 180 tons. And yeah, that's it. So. Yeah, and you can, by the way, you can turn on or off mouse wheel, and you have the possibility to switch between various engine volumes or sounds, and the volume of the sounds. So call outs, ambient, and engines, if you do not have the BSS stuff. I do have the BSS stuff installed. It actually gets controlled somewhere else. It gets controlled from the Sound 3D. Go to volume, and then you get your settings for the various sounds that the BSS extension gives you, and you will control them individually here. So you can change certain sounds. And, that comes with the Payware add-on. Now, I don't have a proper ground handling from jar design profile for this. I only have the one for the normal passenger versions, so the ground handling stuff doesn't really fit. Therefore, I'm not going to bother now. I need to find a ground handling kit that works here. I possibly have to do it myself. So we don't have any ground handling, any stairs now for the moment, because it also doesn't have a loader for here, and inbuilt, I mean, and the stairs for the door, because they don't open the door, they didn't bother allowing the stair to go there either. Okay, so that's that. And now let's have a quick look into the cockpit. Now, this is a slightly modified cockpit, as I said. It's a set of textures that just bring a little bit of, it looks less plasticky. It's still not perfect, but it at least gives, a bit more realism is a very big word for it, but it basically looks a little bit better than the original. The original looks a bit plasticky and a lot more drawn. So with the original, you realize much quicker that you are actually in a drawn cockpit, whereas this, on first look at least, gives some impression of a used aircraft and of a cockpit. So I think it looks better than the original. Okay. But it's definitely not perfect. But it looks okay, and it's a mod that does not cause issues, because these are just the textures and they get replaced and they work. Whereas if you start replacing objects and ACF files, you never know what you're going to get. All right. So let's activate the battery. And the sounds that you're going to hear are already from the new kit. And I'm also going to activate the external power for the moment. And I'm activating the bus ties, put them into automatic. And we have the aircraft woken up here. You can hear already the air conditioning and sounds like that. And it sounds different when you have the original sound kit. So this is part of the BSS sound extension. Now the APU, ideally you should only put the APU on if you are close to starting the engines, or if passengers would be in the back, since we don't have passengers, and because the APU uses fuel, I'm going to leave it off until shortly before we are pushing back. That's when we're going to start it, because we then need it for engine start. Now, there is a C list that you can get out there for the 777, and I'm going to go for the aircraft loading. Is it loading? Checklist. So that's what, obviously, when you start loading the aircraft, request GPU 1 or 2. We have it. Primary external power is connected. The primary, we are on the secondary actually. Nothing, whoops, nothing we can't change. So I'm activating the primary and I'm switching off the secondary. And I've now started X-Plane help in the browser. So then the Adiro switch, which is up here, we need to turn it on so that the alignment starts. Since we do not have realistic timing, this should go quite quickly, I hope. Request ground equipment. Yeah, well, doors are in manual. Chocks are in place, those little tiny wee chockies. Entry door 2 right open. No, we don't have an entry door. Flight deck access switch is normal. Yeah. Cabin and pre-flight deck lights on. Circuit breakers. Yeah, well, they are not modeled anyway. Parking brake off. Since we are on the chocks, we can actually turn the parking brake off, load aircraft and fuel. We've done that already. I hope we did. Hang on. Yes, we have. Plane not loaded. I think we're missing something again. Plane not loaded. Ah, now it does. So let's that run. Remove ground services, accept GPU check. Remove ground services. Set the parking brake. Oh, okay, that's when we're done. So as soon as this is done, we can remove the fuel truck and the chocks and all that, and then we can become independent apart from the GPU, which is still providing power to us. So now the plane is loaded and we've got all these values in there. So I'm going to get the parking brake set again. I'm going to remove the chocks and the fuel trucks. I leave the GPU and then we continue. All right. Chocks removed, program flight management computer. Yeah, that's what we're going to do next. We're going to have a look at the flight management computer, which is down here. Now it is a, let's say it's not the most simplistic, but it's also not a completely realistic, having everything in there version of it. Enter inertial position. Yeah, they're going to do that first. So I'm going to on init. And nav data out of range. Yeah. Clear. So we are in Echo Delta Delta Mike. I don't think the gate thing works. In theory we are on gate 185, but as you see it doesn't know that. Now what we quickly need to check is our position. I think it's this here. It's the 46. Yeah, it's 46.6. Now in other, you could click here and then it would put the position in the scratch pad. That does not work on the other pages. This only works here, and it has actually taken the position. So no, down here. So you can take it from here. I just like to compare, because sometimes the last position is not the one that you're actually standing on. At least in other aircraft, that could actually cause some issues. So, and because we have unrealistic timing, we're already done when it comes to the whole alignment thing. Normally it would take much longer than that. All right. So let's go down here again. You can actually bring out that thing. And we can now continue along the way. The font is a bit odd because I have difficulties differentiating between an H and an M. So this might as well be EDDH for Hamburg. It's hard to read actually. So Echo Delta Delta Mike. Back to Echo Delta Delta Mike. We're going to take off runway 08 left. You could actually load an available company route if it has been saved. I haven't got that, so I go back to here. All right, so gate route. Yeah, flight number is test 1. I'm not going to use the company route, so what we're going to do is I'm going to use the departure. We're going to fly out 08 left via the Anchor 8 Quebec. We have a slightly older ARAC. I haven't updated it yet. the Anchor 8 Quebec. All right, then yep, that's that. If we go back to route, we can actually see that we have Anchor 8 Quebec to anchor. Next waypoint would be Akini. And then comes Ostis. And then I'm going to use the arrival, which I think you first need to pick the arrival, Bamta 3 Alpha, and then you pick the runway. If you do it the other way around, you might get a ping because it doesn't want you. It first wants you to pick the star, and then you pick your approach. And we're going via Mike MIQ to ILS 08 left. Okay, let's have a quick look at the legs here. There is actually a discontinuity, which I'm going to close for our purposes, because that's one of the test points. It's quite a sharp corner. I'm going to activate it, I'm going to execute it, and we've got our route. And in order to have a look at it, let's quickly go here, move to the route mode, and now let's step through the steps. So we're taking off in an easterly direction, then we're turning to the left, fly to anchor, then to Akini. Now you can see the display is not as, let's say, as fancy as it is in other aircraft, because here it's still quite an old way of depicting like pretty sharp corners and all that. But yeah, then Ostis, and then comes Bamta and this strange little corner here, because that is a difficult one for every aircraft, and I wonder what it will do. Then comes Rosap, Bingu, Rusto, Landu, Mike, and then we continue to get to Magat. At 5,000 we need to be, and then we're going to do probably an auto land to see how it does performing an auto land, and especially what the touchdown rate will be when you leave it to the computer. Okay, so looks like we've got that one. I can now go and save this route. So I think I need to, yeah, I need to enter the file name. It's EDDM, EDDM. Then I say save the route. And next time we could actually bring this whole route from the route request menu here. So let's go to the performance init. And yeah, I somewhat thought or remembered that there would be some automatic, no, there isn't. So what you can do is you go to the total weight, which is 182.1 tons, and then you enter 182.2. And because this is not the zero fuel weight, this is the total weight, you can actually put it in here, although there are no discos here. So just put them in here, and then it fills in also the zero fuel weight, and it knows the fuel already. We're going to have 3 tons of reserve. When you press performance init request, it will calculate. I'm not sure what it's calculating here. Cruise altitude will be our usual flight level 200. The cost NX is a low one, 25. So that we're not overdoing it on the speed, I hope. And then we get to the thrust limits. We have an outside temperature of 12 degrees. I'm going to select 45, which still gives us a 101.6%. I'm not sure that we need that much, so I'm going to use also a minus 5% derating. Okay, that gives us 97.6 because we have a long runway and we don't want to shoot up too much. Takeoff, we're going to use flaps 5. And that's now the problem. I'm not sure. V-speed's unavailable. I'm not sure what the center of gravity is. And I can't remember if you can see this anywhere here, or if I'm missing something. So, oh, press the button, take off data request. That was it. It's 26%. We have a trim of 5.75. Let's see. Yeah, we are actually, so yeah, this is unrealistically fast. So roughly 5.75, 0.8 left, and reference speeds, yeah, let's put them on. Now the V speeds, again, I'm not sure if, I can't remember if that gets calculated for you. So one of the things that I personally can do, unless I figure out what's missing, I thought I have everything we need. The wind on the runway is a very good question. What have we actually got on the runway? Let's go to flight configuration and check. It's 87 with 4 knots. Does that take it? Yes. So we have a headwind of 4 knots. V-speeds are still unavailable. Because I'm pretty sure that it will calculate it. It could be that we are missing something. I'm trying to figure out what that could be. We have a departure, right? So we selected the departure already. With flight level 200, econ speed 289, and below 250. Okay, transition altitude is 5,000. And that's our descent. And in the forecast, it's flight level 50. Yep. Take off, invalid entry. So, I don't know, do we need to take off gross weight? 181 point, maybe that was missing. Can't remember what I have to do. V-speed's unavailable. Are we missing something? I don't know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to very quickly use TopCut, my tool, so that I get something. So what do we say? The gross weight is 181 tons. So we need a little bit of, we need to bring it up to takeoff weight 181. Here we go. So we're going to take off from Munich. Takeoff performance. No, we are going to not have a wind like that. We have 80, what did we say? Was it 81 with 4? Temperature is 12. QNH is 1013. 0.8 left. Let's compute this. Stabilizer trim 2.7. Well, that's definitely a different one. So I would say, oh, they take even 69. We have far less than that. Yeah, let's. Yeah. Well then, 69. Let's try that. We can't actually... Oh, hang on. That's the wrong page. I have to go to performance, thrust limits. So we go 69. It seems to be too high a value. Possibly. 069. No. 60. 60 is possible. 69 is not possible. Yeah, okay. It's an approximation, I would say. So I'm going to use this 130, 130, 135. It's not perfect, and I need to figure out what I'm missing, because I think I'm missing something that it requires. But I simply don't seem to be able to get it. Right, that's it. Progress page. So we should arrive with about 12 tons in Munich again. So we're not using that much fuel. And yeah, positional port we don't need. So that's it. On the NAVRAD page, you can see that it selected 109.50 because the ILS is done automatically, all right, with 080, and it's currently parked, but it's going to get active once we are on the approach. It does that automatically. Right. I think that's enough. We've done the... Yeah. You need to be somewhere where there is no click spot in order to close this. By the way, if you open your simulator in windowed mode and it was not the full screen, what will happen is this menu will be somewhere here. That's a real pain. I hope they're going to do it differently, like with the iPad in version 2. Because then the only chance I have is that I keep the menu open and pull it down here. But because I started full screen this time, the menu ends up here. And you can't move it, because if you click on it, it will... Oh, it does move. Interesting. Aha. You learn something new every time. That is interesting. You can actually move it. Disregard what I said before. Program flight management computer, we've done that. File flight plan with ATC. We're not going to use ATC. And yeah, and this X checklist has been made with a very short timer. I would prefer if they keep the checklist there. Was that now pre-flight checklist? Okay, I think that's the next one. Cargo temperature set. So we need to now go and... Cargo temperature, by the way, is up here. And you just set a little bit of... I think that's the cargo temperature. It's very hard to see because it's difficult to get there. Yeah. Aha, now we've got it in the middle position. Thrust asymptotic compensation on. Alright, that's here. APU generator switch on. So now they want us to start the APU. I'm going to defer that. Generator control switches left and right on. Backup generator switches on. That's these here. Primary external power off. Now I'm not going to do that. Okay, I'm going to skip this. Window heat selectors, these switches here, we turn them on. And then we go to the second pre-flight checklist. Left engine primary pump switch on. Left engine on. Right engine primary pump switch on. I don't think we have anything in the center tank, but we keep them off anyway. Demand pump selectors off. Demand pump selectors off. I think that's possibly these ones here. I'm not sure what they're referring to. Demand pump. Ah, demand pumps. So this is these here. This is hydraulics. It's not fuel anymore. Hydraulic panel set, yeah. So we still leave them in the off position. Then the no smoking sign and the seat belts we turn on. The EEC mode switches are here, and it's a little bit, you need to drag your lids open, and then you need to find that and drag them closed again. Okay, auto start switch in the on position. Fuel pump switches off again. Okay. Confirmed. Wing anti-ice set. I'm putting them all into the auto position. And lighting panel, the beacon light is off. The nav lights we're going to turn on. The logo lights we don't need because it's daylight. Taxi and strobe lights are off. It seems they can't check this, but they are off. Lighting panel is checked and the checklist is gone. I need to edit this because that's a little bit of a pain. Then air conditioning and pressurization, equipment cooling switch in the auto position. Then recirculation fans, we'll turn them on. We're going to put the flight deck temperature and the cabin temperature in the middle position. Then left pack and right pack we put in the auto. Trim air we put on. There's not yet the air for them to come on. That's why we keep default lights. Bleed isolation switches we turn on. Engine bleed air left and right on. The APU we're going to turn on when we start the APU later on. Forward outflow valve in the auto position, and that's it. Then comes the pre-flight captain, EFIS, flight path vector switch, blanked meter switch. Yeah, we don't use meters. And then we set the altimeter. So one thing we can do is we can switch this to HPA. So it's 1013 is actually the current one. Altimeter, yeah, VOR, RATF. And you compare this, by the way, this has to be about 1400 feet. Then the pressure is probably okay. VOR RAT switches, where were they? VOR ADF switches. Ah, I know. It's this one here. I put them into the VOR position. Navigation display mode selector to map. Now these are things that I don't like doing. Flight director switch on. Yeah, SMAC selector set to 100. Indicating that we haven't yet got the speed, but we actually know 135 is our V2. So I'm going to put V2 there already. Heading, so heading 080. Okay, and the altitude, flight level 200. Okay. Bank limit into auto position. Yeah, sometimes I actually put this up because they can be quite shallow, those turns. Vertical speed, flight path angle set to vertical speed, initial altitude, clock set to UTC, yeah, well, I don't. Altitude and airspeed indicator, no flags. Well, UTC, this time doesn't match anyway, but I think it is UTC. Altitude and airspeed indicator, no flags, yeah. Altimeter is set, throttles and reversers are off. Yeah, Speed brake lever is down. Yeah, in the down position. Parking brake is on. Left VHF radio on, so we need to turn on the radios. Put on off. Left. Right. And that middle one is, I don't think is used, so it shows something, but I'm not sure what it actually. Oh, hang on. I think that's COM2 and that's COM1. So I'm just realized that my hardware isn't working because it has not detected the aircraft properly for whatever reason. There's always something, you know, you have this stuff and it never works as expected because there's always something that from one to the next time changes or doesn't work or doesn't detect things. And well, anyway. Weather radar on. Weather radar on, so that's theoretically here, but why would we turn this on now? We don't want to grill anyone. Flight deck door locked. Locked, okay. Doors closed and set to auto. Yep, that actually we still need to do. We need to close the cargo door. All right, so all closed. Yeah. That was one of those tools that want to make noise. Otherwise it feels lonely. Okay, so I think we are basically ready for the pushback. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to call better pushback, and I can tell you already the last time I did this I had a bit of a surprise. I'm still going to call it because I'm hoping that this time it might work. Yeah. Actually, let's delete this and let's go a little bit further because this is a large aircraft and the pushback is maybe a little bit too close. Enter.
Bodenanbrücke. Der Schlepper bringt sich in Position.
Yeah. Let's see if the Schlepper can do it. The last time it couldn't. For some reason it wasn't able to steer. And we need to see what that could be. In the meantime, we continue with the checklists that have disappeared again. Before start checklist. So we've set IIS to Mach. The LNAV, so theoretically we would turn them both on. Request pushback and start clearance. I've done that. So, parking brake right, demand, hydraulics, auto. So that gives us hydraulic power. And the C1 and C2 primary pumps we turn on so that we get hydraulic power on the main systems. Left demand in the auto position. And C1 and C2 demand pump selectors to auto. Then we turn on the left fuel pumps and the right fuel pumps. The center fuel pumps I don't think we need at the moment.
Schlepper ist verbunden, der Bypass-Pin ist gesetzt.
Turn on the beacon. So the recall, well, we still have a lot of messages. Stabilizer trim set, we've done that already. Aileron trim set to 0, rudder trim set to 0. So, what did he say? Okay, we still have the GPU, by the way. So now we need to start the APU. I'm going to put this in the start position, and we have to wait. So there's a cutout. It's very fast. I think looks like the APU is available pretty quickly. Then we turn it on. I turn the primary power external off. Then I go to the menu and disconnect it. And I think that should make us independent of things now. Therefore, we are basically ready to push back, and I'm going to disconnect the parking brake now.
Wir beginnen mit dem Pushback. Die Triebwerke sind frei zum Anlassen.
Okay, so I'm going to start with number 2. Put it in the start position. And bring this up. No, hang on. We've forgotten something quite important. So let's turn that off again. I was a little bit too fast. APU is running, yes, but we haven't provided air yet. Okay, let's try that again. And now this thing is spooling up. And it's doing exactly the same thing. So I need to stop better pushback. And it won't. Will it stop? See, it cannot steer it. So for some reason, the 777 cannot steer.
Der Pushvorgang
Cannot be
ist
steered.
abgeschlossen. Bitte setzen Sie die Parkbremse.
It looks like the engine has come up quite a bit. Ah, no, now it's coming here. Duct pressure. Okay. So, better pushback at the moment does not work. Putting on the parking brake.
Schlepper wird getrennt. Einen kleinen Moment bitte.
And I'm not sure what I might have to do in order to allow it the steering, but better pushback does not help us with the 777 at the moment. I need to read up on that. I haven't yet found the reason for it. Let's start number 1. I think when it's around 20 or so, you can add the fuel.
Der Schlepper wurde entfernt. Der Bypass-Pin ist gezogen. Freizeichen gibt's von der rechten Seite. Einen angenehmen Flug. Tschüss.
It gave us now an error message because if you press LNAV and you're not really on an intercept heading, you get an error and the LNAV would not activate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use heading select for the moment, and when we are on the runway, we can switch on LNAV again. So it seems we have 2 good starts. And you can hear the automatic stuff coming on again. Okay, very good. So let's go through the checklist. There's the after start. So the APU can be turned off now. Anti-ice is in auto anyway. Weather radar set. Flight controls. By the way, what you can do here is you can, the center, you can switch, and now we can quickly check that our rudders and ailerons and so on are fine. So here they are. You can switch back to engine. Okay, there's also a checklist, but it's not interactive, unfortunately. That's why I'm using this one. So taxi clearance we have, taxi checklist. Yeah, there's no taxi checklist, so you basically go through all here, but we're going to turn on the taxi lights and possibly the turn off lights, but I think I keep that off. Transponder set to Tara, not yet. Strobe lights don't go on yet either, and parking brake off. And now we need to undo what Better Pushback has done here. So the shadow are correctly. I had to actually turn off ultra weather, so I turned off ultra weather because it will cut the view from the outside. But unfortunately, in that case, we get pretty crackly shadows. Yeah, we have to live with it during this video. By the way, up here you can see that so far we stay on my limited 40 frames per second. And I use the sound settings of BSS to really bring down the external volume. You need to give it a bit of power because it might start to roll, but it doesn't really accelerate very much. So flaps for takeoff. I have a key for that. I put it twice, flaps 1 and then flaps 5. Yeah, and there's the squeaking sound. It's one of these remnants from the good old times in X-Plane 10 when everything was squeaking because everything was so fast. You had no chance with the joystick to steer in a way that it wouldn't squeal. And it's the same still. About ground speed now of 12 knots. You can see this here in the display. And it will slow down if you take away the power. Now I've been watching videos and streams, and again and again people are asking about the 777 and should they buy it now? Well, the thing is, I'm not sure that we can give a recommendation because, first of all, if you want to have a 777 now, yeah, you have two choices. Either you really wait. You wait that Flightfactor sometime, and we have no idea when that will be. I think it will happen, but even that is, I think they do work on the V2 if I'm correct, but I can't guarantee it. But if they do work on the V2, it might still take months, possibly a year, depending on how much work they put in and how the other projects are going. So you might have to wait a long time before you get a 777. So if you're really dying to get a 777, you can buy this. What I cannot promise you is what it would mean if you buy this now, how much of a reduction you will get from Flightfactor when the new one comes out. There is probably going to be, as usual, as they did for the other ones, there's going to be a cheaper purchase price, but I cannot guarantee how much that is. So you may or may not pay more if you buy one now and then get the V2, or in the end it might come out at the same price, but you had a 777 to fly with. So up to you. Okay, if you buy this, you get a decent aircraft. It's not that it is bad, right? It's just a little bit old-fashioned in some respects. The graphics are, as you can see, not the greatest, although you can vamp it up a little bit. Yeah, so I wouldn't condemn this aircraft like I hear sometimes in other channels. And they say, don't spend the money on it, it's wasted, wait for the new version. Not sure that you can, that I would put it like that. But yeah, you should think twice before you spend money. It's not that cheap. And as I say, I can't guarantee what it means when the new version comes out. You might end up paying more, but then again, depending on how far they are, and I don't know how far they are, you might have to wait for quite some time before you actually get a 777. So up to you how you want to play this. I'm going to show you just quickly here how this aircraft behaves. The sound kit definitely is an improvement, right? Because the original sounds, they're okay, but they're nothing really, they're not really great. So for me, this has actually added some value to this add-on. So flaps are set. We're now going to turn onto the runway. I would say we just continue. Going to turn on the landing lights. I'm going to arm the autothrottle. And we're also going to turn on the transponder. And as you can see, the checklist is gone again. Now that checklist, I found it's okay. It does the job for the moment, but I'm definitely going to create my own. The next one would be the after landing and shutdown, so it doesn't cover all the other phases of flight, but that's okay. That's the freeware XRAS plugin that you can get. That doesn't come with the aircraft. Don't forget, this is a heavy bird, especially when it's fully loaded with cargo. So you would not do Le Mans or Formula 1. Yeah, and that is really annoying, the squeaking sound. You need to do something about that. Turn that off. Okay, so we're on the runway. I think we have everything we need. Flaps are set. Oh yeah, the auto brake. I don't think I have done that. And I can't remember having it seen on the checklist. Maybe I've overlooked it. You need to put this into RTO. So I think we are... Oh, why is the brake not working? Oh, I must have gone off the brake pedals. Okay, now you can program yourself some buttons or so on your joystick. I think they've done this here. This looks like they have put the toga. By the way, I'm going on LNAV now, and there's no error message. They've put the toga button so that you, instead of having it on the thrust lever, so you're going to bring up the power a little bit. So something like 40–50%, and then you click on the toga button and it activates the takeoff mode. And then it will set your takeoff power. $80 knots. V1, rotate. Now you're carefully pulling and you bring up the nose and you follow the cute flight director here. Positive rate, gear up. Okay, now I'm activating the autopilot, and from here on we're going to let the autopilot. Then flaps 1. And here you see a weakness already, because it just accelerates no matter what your flaps are doing. It shouldn't really do that, because it wants to go to 250. And it should not really exceed the 1 or up speed when we are in VNAV mode. At least other Boeings are not doing this. So you need to be aware of that, otherwise you're going to hear the overspeed. So we can nicely see we're following already our route. I'm going to adjust the heading. And we're above 5,000, so we're switching to standard. It does that, by the way, mirrored, so they're now separate. And you can see it climbs at 4,300 feet. It's really, it is a rocket. It basically is a rocket. Not sure if it is realistic that it does that in VNAV mode, but that's what it does. I could probably bring it down by using the vertical speed mode, but I will leave it now for the moment. So 10,000. So at 10,000 it seems to have toned down a little bit the rocket climb. Yeah, now there's no checklist, but normally you check that. So auto brake is already in the off position, gear is up, flap is up. So yeah, and we have everything on up here, so we should be fine. I think these two buttons are not in the real aircraft. They are helping us to disconnect the autothrottle, which is basically the switches that are normally at your hand when you're on the throttle levers. There are these switches with which to activate or to disconnect. So they've put them here for us to have access to them much easier. So that's I think that's a simplification. Since I have ultra weather off, we're not only getting crackly shadows, but we don't get a cut-off aircraft, because at the moment my ultra weather still has the problem that it would cut my aircraft in half when I'm in the outside view. So you can see these contrails that it produces, so thin lines here, and a lot of dirt. It looks like it's a lot of dirt, but it's a kind of heat effect too. That they did already have in X-Plane 10, I think. Another of my knobs starting to leave me. It's the one on the Cytec Cessna yoke, the coolie hat. So we're almost at Akini. We're at 14,500, or a flight level 145, since we're in Germany. So an interesting bit will be how it reacts here. I wonder what that will look like, because this is a very sharp bend, and that's one of my test areas where I'm trying to figure out what the aircraft will do. It was really funny. I was always wondering how you can move this menu, and it is so easy. I just figured it out today. In all these years I've never discovered, because whenever I clicked on it, it disappeared, and I never thought of dragging it while I can't see it. So we're almost at flight level 180. We're currently climbing with about 1600 feet per minute, which is a far more normal climb rate. So that means we will reach flight level 200 definitely before Ostis. By the way, you see this here. There's the top of climb. All right. And then when we come to Ostis, I'm going to start the descent to flight level 150, because that's normally here is flight level 150, and then eventually we'll continue to descend. Now here you can see nicely the graphics. It's outdated, you know, even with the mods that you can get, which make it look a little bit from further away, make it look a little bit more realistic. The graphics are outdated, they're old. And yeah, I'm hoping for much better when a V2, or if a V2 comes out. So that was the altitude alert we just heard, and we almost reached flight level 200. It's now leveling off, and it's going to accelerate. But I'm going to prevent it from accelerating too much. So that's the econ cruise. I'm going to put point. Oh, no. 6.5. I can't do that. All right. Oh, I can. Because 0.65 is roughly flight level, roughly 250. No, it's not. So I'm going to do a speed intervention. And I'm staying on 250. Because if we're getting too fast, we'll definitely overshoot massively. That's why I'm bringing the speed back here. So now we'll see what happens. I'm going to actually get the descent going. Clicking on that button here. See what it does. Okay, so the VNAV still has it on a higher altitude, I guess. See when is actually the descent rose up. Okay, so eventually it should bring us down and then it would bring us up again. So the calculation here isn't really working. Flight level 150 or below, and then it's 200 again, so that's not correct. That's unfortunately not correct there. So let's try and correct this. All right. Ah. Okay. Yeah, I think it got a little bit while I was reprogramming. We're flying away. We're flying away from rose up. Oh. So it's doing a big turn. Yeah. Okay. I've seen better than that. I think we need to take bingo and put bingo as the next, because otherwise. And now I'm going to use flight level change to get down to 1500. See what it's doing. No, I'm speeding up a little bit because we're past that strange point, so we might as well fly a little bit faster, since we've deviated quite a bit. And it's descending rather rapidly, so I'm going to bring back the descent rate. So let's shorten this a bit. I'm going direct Landu. We're almost at 1500. Okay. So trying to intercept the line. So it's not going direct to Landu, it's actually trying to intercept. And it is very slow when it comes to turns. So you need to consider that. There are no sharp turns it can make. It's relatively flat. Even if you put that turn bank angle limit to the maximum, it's still quite a shallow turn. It takes time. Okay, this is a big bird, and it takes time. You can't rush it with this one. And you need to descend also in time and all that, because otherwise you will be too fast. You need to manage your speeds and your altitudes. So, we're now heading towards Mike. MIQ. I'm going to set our new heading altitude of 5,000. And I'm going to start a shallow descent towards 5,000. Again, using the vertical speed mode. I'm going to start with about 1,300. And see if we see the descent indicator See that arc here, the green one? So we would be down roughly here, which is fine. So I would think I'll leave it at that, because that will bring us down to 5,000 somewhere before we do the turn onto Magat, which is fine. And I'm reducing the speed now back to 240 actually. Which will probably change a little bit where we are going to be on 5,000, since we're getting slower with the same vertical speed. We'll probably be down a bit earlier, so I could actually go and reduce the descent rate a little bit. And I will also help slowing down the aircraft, because it's slowing down very reluctantly, because we're descending now, so we're adding speed actually. By descending, you in theory get faster, since we don't have any power because the engines are in idle mode at the moment. Yeah, we're very slowly reducing our speed, but it takes time. If I would go a bit more shallow on the descent, we would build or reduce the speed a bit quicker, but it's okay. I think we're fine. We should be at 250 when we reach 10,000 feet. That's one of those restrictions, but I have a feeling that we're going to make that. Yeah, I'm going to turn on the lights right now because I know I might forget. And when we reach this point here, I'm going to be, or try to be at the up speed, which is the 220 knots, which is the speed where we are still flying without flaps, but from the up speed we would then start to extend the flaps, so that we begin then to reduce the speed for the approach when we are on this straight line here from Magat. Now, as far as I remember, if you stay in VNAV mode, it would actually do also the flap speed for you. That means if you're in VNAV, LNAV, and you get onto an approach, I think that it will continue to reduce the speed depending on the flaps, but since I haven't flown this aircraft for quite some time, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm wrong. So we're on that. We're approaching now the last turn. And we'll be at 5,000 shortly before we reach Delta 128 Lima. And our speed is 250. We're very slowly reducing. So I'm going to set the up speed now and let the aircraft slowly get to it. $900. Yeah, we could have prolonged the descent a little bit, and so if we would have been at 5,000 here, it would have been sufficient, but you should not be too fast when it comes to this corner, because as I say, the aircraft will take a wide berth, so the faster you are, the worse it gets. So I'm going to arm the approach mode now. Well, let's say after here, because Magat is on the extended runway line. So we're turning now, and we can see already that we get we have reception of the localizer and also the glide slope, and the localizer is now captured. The glide slope is slowly coming down. We are 12 miles, so I'm going to bring out the flaps 1 and reduce to the flaps 1 speed. We're on the glide slope now. We've started to descend. 10 miles. Flaps 5. Down to the flap 5 speed. And since it only reluctantly slows down, I'm going to bring out the gears now. We are at 8 miles. That will help also with the speed reduction. And something we should have done, and I actually forgot, going to land with flaps 30. So we have a reference speed of 140. Flaps 15. And the auto brake still need to set. I'm going to use auto brake 1. Next stage of flaps. Put VREF roughly +5. Flaps 25. 5.6 miles. Flaps 30 or full. And I'm going to let it auto land. So we're fully configured, and the speed brake, you can put it into the arm position. But to be honest, I'm not even sure. I know that when we use the reversers, they're going to come out, so I'm not going to experiment with them now. So the auto land is actually armed. You can see roll out and flare as modes. Now this only works at airports where there is a category 3 capable equipment. Okay, you can't do an auto land on every airport. You need to have an ILS, and it needs to be capable of supporting auto land. Zero 8 left, confirmed. We haven't actually set the minimums yet. Forgot that. Landing. You can see it blink now in the PFD. Oh, I'm pressing the reverse button. We're using the whole runway, so I have a low brake setting, 80 knots, 60 knots. So I'm providing a little bit of manual braking now. 93 feet per minute, so the auto land actually, when it has everything in its favor, performs quite well. So the auto brake we can turn off, and I'm turning off this high-speed exit now, although we're not at high speed anymore. For some reason I can't steer. That's probably because of the autopilot. Yeah. I'm guessing, but yeah, it's kind of counteracts. Okay, let's start the... Did we actually turn on the strobes? No, we didn't. Forgot about that. All right. So we're starting the APU, and we're bringing back the flaps. And as you can see, the speed brake has extended when we applied the reverse thrust. And I'm going to turn on the taxi lights again. Okay, so I think I won't bother taxiing back to the gate. That's not really very fancy anyway. So let's quickly check. APU is on. That means we can go and turn off the engines. If it lets us. Reverse logic. You have to drag it up to get it down. So the APU has taken over. Right. So this is the good old VMAX Flightfactor Ramses whatever 777. It's the extended pack. I've got the freighter here in aerologic colors, and as a mod I have the BSS sound mod, and I have the FS Cabral texture replacement. It's just a simple texture replacement, nothing else. And yeah, relatively current ARAC. And I've got the reflections, the window reflections removed, also a freeware pack. So that's my modded 777 that I have reactivated, version 1.9.14, until I figure out why 16 crashes on me. And I have to say, it may be old, it may be expensive for what it offers now, but yeah, since I have it, and it's not a bad one. It doesn't have a wing flex, for example, so there's also a fix to do the wing flex. To be honest, I don't care about wing flex. I never did, but if it's important to you, there is actually a fix out there with which you can flapping wings. So for the moment, yep, if you buy it, again, just to remind you, you run the risk of paying a little bit more when Flightfactor actually brings out version 2. I can't tell you when they will do that. I think they will, but anyway. So up to you if you want to invest in getting this new. If you have it, I think this is still a reasonable airplane. It is better than some payware that you get. And yeah, you can do your flights with it. It can do long range. And in the passenger versions, same thing. So there isn't a big difference between the passenger versions and the freighter versions. Just the modeling, and in the passenger version you actually do get opening doors and all. Okay, that's it. Hope that was helpful. Thank you again for watching, and until next time.